You're familiar with ADHD symptoms, but what do the symptoms really mean? And you went to your doc and you got a prescription, but is that the only thing that you can do to manage and treat your attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder? I'm going to explore these questions and help you be a better informed consumer of mental health services. I'm Dr. Don Russell. I'm a psychotherapist, an author, and a professional speaker on the topic of trauma and trauma recovery. And in this video, I want to explore with you, what does ADHD really mean, and what is it really about, and what on earth can we do about it? First, I'm not your primary care physician, and I'm not prescribing medication or anything else for you. I simply want to create some curiosity and create a conversation between you and me about ADHD and what you can do. Of course, as always, subscribe to my channel so that you're first to know about new videos coming out. They're coming out pretty regularly. Also, hit me up with a like, because you're going to like this video, and hit me up with a comment because this video is definitely going to be food for thought. The symptoms of ADHD are out there. You've probably Googled them 100 times. You know them. They are this collection of features that are kind of broad, but they're kind of have two domains: disorganized and difficulty solving problems. It's difficulty multitasking, which, by the way, isn't a great thing to do anyways for your mental health. It's excessive activity and restlessness, poor planning, low frustration tolerance, mood swings, anger, irritability, some people call hot temper, and difficulty coping with stress. In a nutshell, that's symptoms of ADHD. And of course, as a consequence, those things that I just listed are going to cause social and academic problems at school and outside of school, which is going to, as a consequence, disrupt self-esteem and a positive self-belief. And so there's a cascade of subsequent problems to the actual ADHD syndrome, a phenomenon. But let's go a little bit further and let's explore and let's see if we can understand a little bit more about what's going on. In psychology and human development, there's this key concept called attachment. And attachment is basically how we have learned how to interact and relate to key people in our early life and really relate to the world around us. Basically, it's how we relate and interact with the world through adolescence and into adulthood. And it's largely dictated by the quality and the nature of our first key intimate relationships, which of course means parents or key caregivers. Poor attachment is called attachment injury or developmental trauma. Think of it as a missing childhood experience. What's missing for the child is a sufficient level of the subjective experience, subjective felt experience, if you will, of secure attachment, safety, basically security and safety in their emotions and in their heart. You're tempted to ask, especially if you're a parent and your child has ADHD diagnosis, well, how much safety and security was I supposed to provide for my child? And oh my word, what have I done wrong? I feel like such a terrible parent. Well, first of all, don't feel like a terrible parent, because this is not about guilt-tripping a parent, not by any stretch of the imagination. Asking that question about what is the sufficient level of subjective experience of safety and security is simply the wrong question, because, of course, it's a subjective experience. It can't be measured on a chart. It can't be measured with a blood test. It's the child's own subjective experience of, did he or she feel safe and secure in his earliest years. So it's the availability of the parent or caregiver to be available to soothe the child when the child needs soothing as they go out into the world, exploring their little micro world around them. And if there is a sufficient level of safety and security, again, in the subjective experience of the child basically learns two things. One is that it is safe to go out there and explore the world. Basically, the world is a safe and benevolent place so I can relax. And second, that there's somebody that has my back, that if I do get stressed out, emotionally, psychologically stressed, I've got a place to go where I can get filled up again with a sense of safety and security. Like I say, the felt sense that somebody has my back, there's a place I can go to feel better. On the other hand, if the child does not experience things that way, if the child does not have if the child does not have a sufficient level of safety and security, then the child learns essentially the opposite of those two messages. The world is a scary place and I need to be on guard. And second, I can't fully relax because I don't know for sure that nurturance, care, support is available, over my shoulder if I need it, when I need it. The emotional and psychological result is confusion and chaos in the soul or the psyche of the child. Think of it as the child needs to become hypervigilant, scanning their environment, looking for the next source of danger or the next source of threat. So they can never really relax. They can never really go off duty or off guard. And they can't trust others as being dependable. They can't trust that they can reach out and get help if they need to get help. One of the other consequences is that and this is, I guess, a symptom of attachment injury going into adolescence and adulthood, the child is sort of less able to read faces for emotion, and so is less able to judge and assess whether a person is warmly and benevolently inclined or else is hostile and unsafe. And brackets, by the way, because of the last 2 years, I would anticipate an epidemic of attachment injury and developmental trauma as a consequence, because children have spent a lot of time experiencing their caregivers without seeing a good portion of their face where emotions are red, right? So the missing experience from childhood shows up in adolescence and in adulthood in a host of ways that actually turn out to be remarkably similar and analogous to that set of symptoms ADHD. Poor self-esteem, poor impulse control, difficulty trusting others, lack of depth in relationships, impaired social functioning, and the others that you see on your screen there. If you're listening to my description here and you are skeptical and doubting, saying, no, my doctor said I have ADHD, first of all, I'm not arguing with your doctor. I'm wanting to give you food for thought and reflection. Second point, and this is a really, really key and important point in understanding why there might be confusion and difficulty sort of grasping this concept. Healthy, secure attachment or insecure attachment, what we call attachment injury or developmental trauma, is an experience that happens very early in life. At least it starts very early in life, before a person has conscious memory, or I should say, before the person has access to memory at a conscious level, and also before a person has developed language. So a person is not going to be able to remember the experiences that led to either a healthy attachment in very, very early life, or remember the experiences that led to an insecure attachment very, very early in life. Because in order to do that kind of remembering that we normally mean when we use that term, you need language and you need access to visual memory. Adolescence and adulthood, we don't have that when we look back at the first couple of years of life. But what we do have is the felt experience. That is stored in our body as this thing I call felt sense, a term that we use in lots of other contexts. I just had a feeling that I shouldn't walk down that dark alley at night, or I had a feeling, I just felt like I should, call my mother. Well, where'd that come from? Well, that came out of the gut. It came out of the body. That's what we mean by felt sense, and that is memory, or at least it's memory activated, but it's not the kind of memory that we say, oh yeah, I remember in high school I had a crush on that boy or that girl. Pulling it all together, the primary characteristic of insecure attachment from childhood, developmental injury or attachment injury, is this hypervigilance. I don't feel safe in the world, so I'm scanning around looking for the next threat. I can't fully relax, and so I can't leave my attention and focus on one thing. I have to shift my attention from this to this to this to this because I'm looking for a threat. You could say a person with attachment injury has trouble focusing well, which is attention deficit. And the other characteristic is this excess of stored anxious energy that just as a consequence of that hypervigilance, that constantly being on alert, and that excess of stored anxious energy is going to look a lot like hyperactivity. So it appears that what is getting labeled very, very frequently as ADHD, and frequently a prescription is the result of that labeling and that diagnosis, might actually be misunderstood and misinterpreted, and may in fact actually be attachment injury from childhood. And the body is acting out with hyperactive energy and a sense of unsafety that prevents the person from being able to stay focused on one task. Again, I'm not your doctor, I'm not your primary care physician, I'm not prescribing anything to you. In fact, I don't even own a white lab coat or a stethoscope. So don't take this as medical advice. Take this as a curiosity conversation. Think it over with people that you trust and fire me a comment, yay or nay. I would love to hear your comments. Give me a like and also hit subscribe. I've got lots of videos coming out on relationships, on trauma, on mental health, and mental illness. Most of all, thanks for watching. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other.